entire country is mourning the third president of the Republic of Kenya, and now the late, of course, Mwai Kibaki, and different leaders, as we have seen, have come in to, of course, eulogize him. First, as an icon, some have said he's, a leader that has to be emulated. Kenyans have reacted as well, most of them mentioning the new constitution, the economy being at its best during his tenure. We've also seen them cry out loud for, the free primary education, among other things, infrastructure. And even as we take a look at this, situation in the country, President Uhuru Kenyatta's televised address that actually confirmed the death of the former president of Kenya. I am joined in studio by the political analyst, that is Mr. Herman Manyora, to now try and figure out this particular question and analyze as we get towards August 9th. Who then can fill Mwai Kibaki's shoes? You realize that this is the third president of Kenya, who was succeeded by now the outgoing president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Everybody seems to have an opinion on what President Uhuru Kenyatta has done to either break what, of course, former president and now the late Mwai Kibaki had put in place, and people hoping to actually see what then, after President Uhuru Kenyatta is succeeded, will we have another president like the former president and now the late Mwai Kibaki? Mr. Herman Manyora, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Good evening.
Good evening, Shu, and thank you for the invite.
We're actually glad you created time.
Thank you.
You've been very vocal on matters politics, and a lot of Kenyans would want to hear from you tonight concerning, filling Mwai Kibaki's shoes even after his demise. I will just go straight, to the point. A few questions, 3 or 4, thereabout in terms of analysis. Now, a lot of succession politics has been going on, even at this particular point in time as we get towards August 9th. It was very vivid and clear that the late Mwai Kibaki did not seem to take any sides as far as the top position is concerned. Might he have been closer to Kalonzo Musyoka, because everybody's looking at in the last days of his existence, seemed to have been seen once or twice with Kalonzo Musyoka, who is now coming in Azimio, and as we're looking at who will be then the running mate of Raila Odinga. But does this place Azimio in a better place as we're speaking, or what is the analysis? Because he never really stood up and said, well, I hope this would be the successor of President Uhuru Kenyatta at the moment.
Thank you very much. First, my condolences to the family of President Kibaki, Jimmy Kibaki and the rest, Judy and the other 2 siblings, and of course to the people of Kenya. Mwai Kibaki retired, having served his 2 terms in March of 2013. It's been like 9 years or so. He's kept his peace. He's never been involved in politics. And I think it's not like what you find in many of these other third world countries. When people leave office, they keep popping their nose into politics. Same with President Moi. Directly involved in politics? Not at all. Of course, there's some slight difference between Kibaki and Moi. President Moi was towards the end of his term, as the succession politics were picking up, very much consulted, and we saw people trooping to Kabarak. Got a number of politicians, Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and others, with the exception of, I think, William Ruto, giving an indication of where the succession politics was going, even before they became clear in a manner we now know. That has not been the case with Kibaki. I think partly because of his style.
All right.
Before he became president, he was known as a person who, in fact, bordered on being a coward. The Gikuyus call him Jeno Kigboy, a man who never saw a fence he didn't want to. But that was his style. Just mind your business until you're actually needed somewhere. When you have a role to play, then play it. So I think they had different personalities, different approaches to public life. So Moi remained a bit involved in our politics. Not directly, of course, but people going to see him, like I've said. Kibaki, quiet. partly because of that, but also partly because of health. I think Kibaki had health issues right from the time he took over office, just slightly before. That accident, the terrible accident, the near fatal accident at Makutano, Machakos, and then I think the stroke a month or so after taking office. I think it had a toll on his health. And this was evident, especially in the last public appearance when we lost governor, was it Gachagua or something like that? One of those. Nyeri has lost 2 governors. I think one of them, he couldn't give a coherent speech. So that was the last time he was seen in public. So I think because of the poor health, and again, majorly again, I think because of his style, he's not been involved in public life. We only saw him once in court over some small building, a company he belonged to, or some circle or society was fighting over. Nothing else.
Okay.
And the cool guy he was in life, maintained it until he died, which I think is a good thing. Yeah.
A lot of Kenyans have really celebrated him today. If you followed the bulletin, all of them and the leaders eulogizing him, pretty much close to what you have said today. However, I am still looking at how outstanding he was. And if you look at, the former president, we're looking at Jomo Kenyatta, the late Moi, as you've mentioned, and now his successor, President Uhuru Kenyatta. I'm talking about, of course, the late Mwai Kibaki. The economic, boost that he gave the country, the stability that people actually use to compare each of the tenure we have seen, seems like something that continues to stand in history record books in this country. It's been quite a question of, between the big political names we're seeing right now, a lot of people are asking, therefore, if we do not have him to advise the next person in office, do we see or can we pick somebody in the presidential candidates today that could probably fill in Kibaki's shoes? Is there a limelight for anybody of the sort as we're looking at August 9th?
First, I think there are many good things to say about Kibaki, and we must say.
Yes.
In fact, this is not even a sad day. This is a day to celebrate Kibaki's life, because he served his beat, he served his people, he served mankind, and he lived to the prime age of 90 years. He has seen his grandchildren. If his children had been a little more ambitious, like my Luya young people, he could have seen his great-grandchildren. So let's celebrate his life.
Absolutely.
And when Moi died, like you say, I take part in politics in this kind of terms of talking about things.
Yes.
Many people were saying all manner of things about Moi, but I stood firm and said, when somebody has died, let's just say the good things. There will be time to say the bad things. So Kibaki has his bright side, his dark side, his good side, his ugly side, like every human being, just like every president. But of course, many Kenyans would want to remember Kibaki for the good things. And a time like this is a time to celebrate his life, to celebrate him, and to remember the good things he did, like you say. One thing about our presidents, and I keep reminding Kenyans, is that we are lucky in this country. Because we have not gone through what others like us went through. Our neighbors, Somalia, Uganda, name them, all these countries, Ethiopia, they went through hell. So to have a president who can hold the country together for 15 years, being Jomo Kenyatta, for 24 years, Daniel Arap Moi, 10 years Kibaki, now 9 years and counting, Uhuru Kenyatta, that is good enough. There's something to celebrate. That's something we must be happy about. And because who knows? If Kenya had been ruled by somebody else other than Moi in the 24 years he was president, perhaps we could have joined Somalia and Ethiopia and all these Ghana and Nigeria and other failed states. So just on that score alone, we must celebrate Kibaki because, and there was a lot of turmoil. Not to say that there were things that could not have torn the country apart. There were things. There were major issues in this country. Of course, the most memorable is the failed election of 2007 and the clashes and the near civil war. But there were also others. The referendum, the failed MOU between him and Raila Odinga and the almost chaos in government. But he was able to keep the country together, hold the country together. For that alone, we must celebrate Kibaki. Of course, then you can begin counting all the other good things. People talk about the economy, which is true, of course. You can highlight a number of things when you talk about the economy.
Infrastructure?
Pardon?
The infrastructure?
The infrastructure. You can talk about free primary education, free secondary education, you know, thick highway you mentioned. And you can talk about many things, you know, stabilizing our currency, liberalizing the economy, even the currency in terms of you could now work with dollars without facing a jail term. And you know, but most memorably, according to me, in terms of the economy, would be near self-reliance. That let's collect our taxes and do our things. Let what others give us in terms of development be a top-up. You know, now we are in the other way. We are in the other way now. We can call it bottom-up, I think now, where really everything we use is from foreigners. Ours is barely visible. If you were to ask Kenyans, how much of the things you see going on, how much of those things are financed by your taxes?
Yes.
You'll have a big problem. So one of the things he did, which I really want to remember most, is to show Kenyans that we have it within the country to finance our own budget, which actually centered around tax collection. Previously, we were collecting just about 200 billion. You cannot imagine that a short 10 years ago, Kenyans were just collecting about 200 billion shillings. He moved that times 3 and so on and so forth. And we hit the trillion things and so forth. So we remember him for that, and many other things. Yeah.
I like that you're keeping it, Mwai Kibaki the entire time. And of course, I was just looking at your analysis, being a political analyst at this point in time, because you're talking about also, you've mentioned if his sons were more vigilant. We're looking at the DP. I don't know if you remember the party that he began.
Yes.
And if this could then be a wake-up call of its revival. We really do not know what next is coming after his demise, even as we're celebrating, the now late, former president of Kenya. A lot of Kenyans were hoping that he would speak, and
on the goings on.
on then who then does he or would he endorse? But from your analysis, sir, do you think, that we have somebody who can then fill in his shoes? Could it be one of his sons who's probably now taking over the DP party? What is your analysis from where you sit? Because at the end of the day, we need to stabilize this economy.
Waswahili wanasema siku njema huonekana asubuhi. A good day is spotted in the morning. It's unlikely that somebody will come from Kibakis family, and it's not strange. It happens quite often. You find people have children who are not like them. Then somehow you get a grandson or a granddaughter or a great-great-granddaughter coming up. But from the people I know, Jimmy Kibaki and Judy, they don't look to me, they don't look like they are politicians. They'll be out of their depth if they went into politics. So, but Kenya is not short of men and women.
All right.
Who, if Kibaki did a great job, and I'm saying there will be things to say, negative things, but at the right time. At the right time, okay. So if Kibaki did good things, I'm not sure we have a shortage of Kenyans who can do that. If you want to find out whether really, I think you can say, okay, what did Kibaki do that is so unique in the politics of this country? Standing for country is not always a simple thing. Standing for country is always a big challenge because personal interests, community interests can undo, in many cases, overshadow that is the general good. I think Kibaki all his life served public. He served the public, he served this country all his life. I mean, from the time, a very early age when he left Makerere to live his career in teaching that was just about starting off, to come to be the first to become executive officer of KANU, the kind of CEO of the then young party, you know, the efforts of Tomboy and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, especially Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Actually, it's Jaramogi Oginga Odinga who was more instrumental in bringing Mwai Kibaki from Makerere than Tomboy. I think people don't want to credit Jaramogi for that. It was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. And even gave him a car here, his first car, drive this car, do this job for this country. Unless my memory does serve me right. But, so you see, he's a gentleman who could have done many good things for himself. As early as 1974, Kenyans should be reminded, he was listed among the 100 people in the world who had the potential of leading their countries in future. As early as 1974. He is a man who, if he really just wanted to achieve for himself, could have worked with the World Bank. Of course.
Yes?
He could get a job with the World Bank. You could have gotten an international job, well-paying. You live on the top range of, you know, in countries, top cities of the world, living really good life. But he chose service for country. So if you were to use that measure, you are going to find there are Kenyans like Raila Odinga who have put their life on the line in the service and defense and the honor of the country. So there will be people like Raila Odinga will be there. There will be people like Mother Karua. There are many other Kenyans who have served this country, who really could have done better things. You know? Even people like Orengo, people like Itobi Manyara. They are people who, during their most productive life, most productive, when you are in your 30s, you know, they say you are most productive, 40s. They could have done better things, but they went to the trenches to fight for this country. And they may not have all the money that other people have in this country, but when they walk in the streets of Nairobi, they walk with their heads high, chest protruding, knowing they contributed to making this country what it is. So we cannot have a shortage of people who, like Mwai Kibaki, put country first and serve this country. Because I want to repeat, Kibaki was a shining star. He could have done what many people like him did. Work for private organizations, go for international assignments, and make really good money, live really good life. I'm not saying he didn't live good life.
Okay.
But you know, you are not going to compare living your life, these chokora places of ours, and living in a nice city of the world, and you know, with all the good and trappings of civilization. So there are Kenyans who deserve that, and there are many. We can't even count them.
All right, I like that you're, of course, putting a lot of things in perspective. Allow me to also appreciate those who are watching us live on Facebook. If you have any questions, as we are about to wrap up this, conversation, a very short conversation, just in respect of the now late former president of the Republic of Kenya. I can see here Sally Daniels saying it is indeed a very sad day for us Kenyans. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much, Sally Daniels, for watching and for your feedback. And Albanas Ngare just saying today is a sad day to our country. We have lost the best president. May Almighty God give comfort to the family of the retired and late President Kibaki. I'm watching you from Kasarani Gumba Estate. You know, from what he has just given us here, you can see one of the Kenyans saying the best president. You know,
words like best are very judgmental, and they are best not used.
All right.
Because best in which way? We have said this is the time to celebrate his life, to say, to eulogize him. The word eulogy actually means nice, kind words about an individual.
Yes.
So we must say all the good things. But the moment we fall into the trap of saying best, worst, people say Moi was the worst president. Then I was doing an interview with, I think, one of the local stations, and then they were an international TV station. I wondered, if you were to look at the things Moi had done before he died, what Kenya was before Moi took over, in terms of almost literally everything, in terms of the schools that were in this country, and in terms of the schools that he came up with, in terms of his singular fight for the girl child, and he was remembered for the boarding school. He turned all day schools, beginning with Pangani here. You know this famous Pangani? It was just a day school. Turned them into boarding schools. Opened up road networks in the country. And did so many things. So when you use the word like the worst president, the best, that's judgmental. We don't want to say Kibaki was the worst or the best. Kibaki was a good president. He did his bit, but like other presidents before him and after him, like other human beings who are mortal, they have their good side, they have their bad side. And I've always believed when somebody has died, let's keep the bad side for the... We will talk about it later, you know, once we have helped Judy and Jimmy, I know, and I think there's David and another one, I don't know. Once they have mourned their father,
yes,
the grandchildren have mourned their grandfather. You know, you know, Kenyans have mourned their president. Then we can say, wait a moment, what? Was it all roses? Then someone say, no. Then someone might whisper one or two other things. But for now, let's say Kibaki was a good man, we celebrate him, but let's not use words like the best president.
Okay.
Because, you know, you can do a lot. But just one thing out of step could cancel all the good you've done. Okay? And again, you could be such a bad person, do everything evil, but just one act cancels all the bad things. So it depends on the perspective. Because even Jomo Kenyatta, people say he was not a very good president. But Jomo Kenyatta was president at a time other African countries were falling apart. Broken systems. Coup d'etat, coup after coup. Yeah. When tribalism was destroying African and other third world countries. Religious differences, tribal differences. But Jomo Kenyatta was able to hold this country together. That's where I began.
Yes.
I say, you see, even as we point fingers at Moi and Kenyatta and whoever else, we must not just keeping us as one country for the 60 or so years we've been together. That's good enough. That we must celebrate that. And for that reason, I want to remember Kibaki as a man who served his 10 years, left the country united. This country perhaps could have been torn asunder. Remember, it is not easy to cede power or part of your power. After you've been sworn in and you are Mwai Kibaki, to be agreed to sit down with a person who, according to you, you defeated, and you have taken oath of office, and you have all the instruments of power, but say, I can see a few people are dying, let's sit with Raila Odinga and talk. That is not a small thing. There are other presidents who wouldn't mind until thousands and thousands have died.
Yes. Okay.
And they are not seeing the blood. But for Kibaki to be able, having been sworn in and given all the instruments of power, with all the support of all the agencies, of all the instruments of violence are under his control, but to agree to sit down so that not one more drop of blood is lost. Those are things we must celebrate. It takes a statesman to agree to sit down with somebody who is challenging his authority. Many presidents will say, before you sit down with me, tell the world you recognize me as president. First condition. He didn't give those kind of conditions.
So he had a lot of modesty and humility even during his tenure.
Those are the things that save countries from destruction. Now I'm saying, we can go fishing all the good things or all the bad things. Let's just celebrate the fact that, and appreciate the fact that keeping the country together for 60 or so years is something we must celebrate. And celebrate the people who have led this country, being Jomo Kenyatta, Daniel Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki, and now Uhuru Kenyatta. And it say, to answer your question of shoes, as Kenyans, we hope the man, because I don't think there are women in the contention now, the man who takes over this country after the elections of August 9th this year must remember that there were 4 other presidents who could have destroyed this country, but they didn't do it. They chose to consider the country bigger than themselves, bigger than their communities. So we hope if it is Raila, if it is William Ruto, they will be able to see that what are Kenyans saying about Kibaki? Kenyans saying Kibaki was a good person. He put this country together.
Yes.
I also must leave such a legacy. So now with Kibaki, we are talking about a legacy, and it's a challenge. Because you can see his death is coming so close to an election. This is a challenge to those who are going to take over. That you also need to leave a legacy so that when your time to go, when the curtains fall for you, and your time to go before your maker, people can have kind words to say about you. is a challenge.
So it's quite a challenge he has left behind.
Yeah.
And even as we're closing, I just remember that it is in April that he also stepped down in 2013,
yes,
if I'm accurate.
You're
also
accurate.
Just 4 days apart when we lost the First Lady, Mama Lucy. And now, of course, we're seeing the demise of now the former president, Mwai Kibaki, who was his or her husband, that is Mwai Kibaki. So April has been quite eventful for the Kibaki family. And
we pray for them that God may give them the strength.
Yes.
When you lose a patriarch of this nature, you feel it. But with a prayer from all Kenyans, I'm sure the family will have the strength to go through this terrible moment of their life.
And of course, thank you very much, sir, for just being part of this very short discussion. We really needed to hear your sentiments on the same. And picking it up very closely is that you have said he was a good president. We will not say best or worst. No. And of course, the country is mourning, so the best we can do is celebrate his life and the best he did for this country. Picking it out really strongly is what you have said, keeping the country united, even after the post-election violence that we witnessed, the darkest of times in Kenya, 2007 through 2008, some of the outstanding recorded moments in this country. And Mr. Herman Manyora, we hope to see you again years down the line. You know, after you've said we have mourned enough, so we start checking. Or
we can now point out a few things.
Even now.
We must remain Africa.
We must.
As Africans, we don't say bad things about a man when they have died.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I am, of course, welcoming you to be part of our discussions. The conversation doesn't end here. Look Up TV is patriotic, and we stand with the country even in these dark times, and praying that the family and friends of the late former president of the Republic of Kenya, who is the 3rd president of the Republic of Kenya, is comforted and in peace during this time. But from me, Anki Doris Sambat, thank you very much for watching this bullet. This is the Look Up Bulletin. This is Look Up TV Weekend. And may his soul rest in eternal peace. Have a good night.